Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and it's my pleasure to review the new edition of Rachel Moore's book, which she's produced on the law of health and safety at work for 2017 to 18. It's now in its 26th edition. We've reviewed it before, and it's always a great pleasure to see what has taken place since the last edition appeared. And the book now comes from Croner, who are the new publishers of the work. Now, Elizabeth and I talked about the book, and I'll show you the book in a moment. We've given a title of our book review for this work, another edition of this short annual handbook on health and safety at work, the 26th edition for 2017 to 18, and a treasure for all in this field. And that's what it is, because it's not a difficult book to read, but at the same time, I think it's a fundamental purchase for very many people, not just within the legal profession, but much wider than that. Let's look at it first of all. It's a paperback. There's the front of it there. You can see the title of the book there, and you can see the author. And she's a partner in Kennedy's Law LLP. Then there's the spine, and then on the back, there's some detail about the book itself. Now, the back of the book has an index. The index is by paragraph numbering. You've always got to be a bit careful with indexes because the paragraph numbering is slightly different from the way that some books are actually structured. Subject index, and as I say, the paragraph numbering, it says index entries are 2 paragraph numbers, but for the appendices they're in the form of app 1 to whatever it excuse me, might be. The appendices, of course, at the back, extremely useful. List of EU directives. Well, that could be very useful for some people at the moment. Now, at the front of the book, there is the main front page, and then we get into the book itself there, the details of the book, and Foreword, which has been written by Teresa Budworth, who I mentioned a minute. Then there's the preface, which is written by the author, dated September 2017. Then you've got the contents section of the book, all the way through. You can see the various contents. It's nicely laid out, this book. It's not too complicated. The loose leaf works are much more complex. I used to do a bit of prosecuting in this area. It can get quite complicated quite quickly. Then you've got the table of cases, statutes rather. Then the table of, after that, of regulations and orders. Again, there's quite a lot of them, of course. And then the cases, they come afterwards in this particular publication. Quite often you get the cases first, but in this way, it's actually the cases come last. Then you get to chapter 1, law and legal institutions, and it sets the framework from where we were, the background to health and safety law. And of course, it does go back a long way, 1802, and then it runs all the way through to the big legislation, which is a while ago. More of that to come. Now, what do we say about the book? Well, we say this. As we said with the last edition, that's the 25th edition, it's always a pleasure to review Rachel Moore's annual editions of the paperback. It's now from Croner on health and safety at work laws. And so it is the case with this new edition. And as Teresa Budworth writes in the foreword this year, more than 40 years have now passed since the 1974 Act came into force. And she says, quote, "There is no doubt that the Act has had a major impact on health and safety in the UK and has saved many lives." I'm sure that's right, and the reason we have this legislation is to protect people. Now, the new edition, the 26th edition, for 2017 to 18, has appeared as we grapple with Brexit. And Teresa comments that, quote, "Some people consider that safety legislation has gone too far." Well, we know they are, and we know which newspapers they contribute to, Mr. Letts and Mr. Littlejohn. The point is, it says, however, she rightly points out that reviews in recent years have found the framework of legislation under the umbrella of the Enabling Act is fit for purpose, requiring a proportionate approach to managing risk. And that is what it's about. And for that reason alone, we welcome Rachel Moore's new edition and the hard work she puts in each year to give us such a good service in this area of law. Now, to remind readers, the original work was produced by the late Norman Selwyn, and as the editor reminds us, the importance of health and safety cannot be underestimated, with compliance literally meaning the difference between life and death in extreme situations. How right she is with this statement. And the reason for this short law book's continued success, it runs to just over 600 pages, is its popularity with businesses and organisations who manage their health and safety issues well. They are likely to be more efficient and financially healthier if they understand the rules. So this book helps every level of reader. And the reason? Accidents and ill health remain a major annual cost to an organisation. So if you're running an organisation, it makes sense to make sure that you have the correct provisions in place. Now, Budworth remarks that the Act underpins the work of health and safety practitioners who are often charged with helping their organisations to understand and comply with legal requirements. And that is where the beauty and the benefits of this book are to be found with the new edition, which is of course fully up to date. And the title is also a most important current statement on the law which is not going to be immediately affected in any way by Brexit from March 2019 onwards. I believe it's now the 29th of March 2019 at 2300 hours. Now, although many regulations have arisen to transpose EU directives, and they are contained in this work, it is correct that during the changes which are bound to occur with Brexit, it means that the regulations will remain in effect, and many can be considered to simply add more detail to the principles which existed in UK health and safety law from before we joined the EU. And we're sure this is right, so that businesses will continue to find what is a little gem of a book, just the handbook for them during this tremendous period of upheaval which has now begun. And I would add there that the one thing that must be stated is that there are critics of health and safety legislation, but we've got to have something. We've always had something to protect people. It's not just to protect workers, it's to protect everybody, and that's really the purpose. So you can moan as much as you like about some of the silly little areas, and there are one or two, I accept that, but the general thrust of it is very, very important for all of us. Let me conclude. Rachel Moore concludes as well in the following way. We still do not know what laws may or may not be changed. That's with Brexit. But we do know one thing. The UK is already seen as a global leader on health and safety standards. So any changes will try and reinforce that status. And that is probably exactly what will happen when Brexit bites. So thank you very much, Rachel, for setting out the keeping of the balance between the degree of risk and its management as we enter the 2020s. The publication date for this edition is cited as at July 2017, and the author thanks Gordon Tranter, who updated chapter 14 and the appendices. As I say, I'm really pleased with this book. It's an important book. Here it is again. It's not a big book. It should be actually in many offices, because it's really a very straightforward statement. There's the back of it there. Just opening it in the middle, you can see here we're looking at substances. You see the structure? This is about substances. You can see the paragraph numbering, and where appropriate, what you can do is you can see the very interesting actual drawings, and in this case these are signs, quite useful. Do you know, I don't know quite a few of them, so it's always useful to have a good look. Examples of safety signs and their meanings, again, very useful. So I think it's an important factor for everyone. Again, you can get a very good indication of the paragraph numbering from there. Well, thank you very much to everybody concerned. Very grateful to Croner for producing this work, and as I say, without having this sort of work, it makes our lives more difficult. So you do make the passage of our work, our responsibilities, a lot easier. So a big thank you to Rachel and all the people involved in the production of the work. Thank you. Bye-bye.